Suzanne, today it's getting real. Real.
I'm super excited to get real.
Oh, I know.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Everybody, welcome to one and only No Vacancy Live. That is Dr. Producer Suzanne Bagnara, whose career is blown up in front of our eyes down there at FIU. I, of course, am Glenn Hausman. So great to see you today. How are you, Suzanne?
I'm excited to be with you today. I feel like it's been a hot minute. Like you're traveling a lot. And even though you're in the state of Florida, I didn't really get to hang out or see you this time.
Well, I will tell you, the 3 days I was in Florida was a hot minute. High 80s over there. I did go check out the interview I did with Ben Perlmutter of Ben Perlmutter of TPG Hotels and Resorts. That was a really fun one. We did that in Orlando at the Wyndham Disney Springs. By the way, Suzanne, I got to know the GM of that property, Jay Leonard, and it is such an interesting thing that he has to go through being at Disney Springs, but being a Wyndham property, but also having to speak to the Disney folks over there on a constant basis. We're going to have him on the show soon enough to talk all about that. That should be fun, right?
That's pretty exciting. I think he might even have an FIU connection.
Oh, very big connection. All right. So today's exciting because I'm always happy when I feature our friends from government agencies on here. And today we got the TSA back with us. But instead of talking about future innovation, we're going to talk about how you can innovate right now in order to make sure you're prepared for next May's switch over to Real ID. And Suzanne, I believe it this time when they say it. I know this has been going on for almost my entire career, but this time it is definitely happening. And I mean that in earnest with truth. I'm not being facetious over here. So you guys are going to have to get ready. I've already got my Real ID. We're going to talk all about it. What is it? Why are you going to get it? Why is it going to transform the way we travel and communicate to the TSA? Let's bring Simone Davis, who's running the Real ID program. Simone, it's so great to see you today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this is exciting. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to know what Real ID is and why it's so important. And then we're going to prove your point with a little video.
Okay, great. So the Real ID Act was established in 2005, and it was a recommendation from the 9/11 Commission. And the purpose of that recommendation was to put minimal standards on the production of driver's license and state-issued IDs.
Right. Because
And
50 states and other territories, everybody has their own format and way of doing things. Please continue.
absolutely, there's 56 jurisdictions, and they all create driver's license in a means to where they were just creating them for their state. So the government stepped in and provided some minimum standards. And when I say minimum, I mean minimum standards that they must follow in order to meet the regulation for
Hey,
security.
Simone, those are the standards we follow in this show every day. It's really impossible.
And we say minimal because some of the states, several of the states actually, add layers on top of what we require. So we want to make sure people understand that and go to their state page to find out what's required to get a driver's license, a Real ID
Yeah.
compliant license.
All right, so let's take a quick look at this video over here that I want to show you folks, and then we are going to talk a little bit more about it. So here we go.
Well, I'm looking good. Thank you. Just became a Real ID. What's the plan? Impromptu road trip? Actually, the plan is to fly to New York for today's product launch, and then visit the family in California and cap it off with a girls' weekend in New Orleans. You really can just do all that. Sure, I'm a Real ID, so I'm good to board any domestic flight. Speaking of which, gotta fly. Nice. Enjoy. I'll be here.
Be your Real ID self by May 7th, 2025. Find out how at tsa.gov/Real ID.
Well, I'm sitting here real pretty because I got 51 weeks to go, and I'm already all set there, Simone.
Excellent.
And hey, kudos to whoever came up with Tiffany's last name, Tiffany Takeoff. I like. I like that. She's going to be traveling lots of places from Kentucky. All right, so share a little bit more about what all of this really means.
So, as we all know, the Transportation Security Agency is a security agency, and the purpose of Real ID is just another layer of security that we apply at our checkpoints. Now, the purpose of it, again, is to create a more secure identification. That has to do with what is required to get it, as well as how the card is created. So the states have all complied with this now and are uh, able to issue Real
Mhm.
ID compliant driver's license. So this is just another layer of security for TSA. Of course, when people come through the checkpoint, we need to know you are who you say you are, and this is a greater validation of that by having a Real ID compliant.
Right now, I just say, "Hey, don't you know who I am? Google me." And then they let me. Then they put me in a little room in the
Yeah.
back, and I never get anywhere. Suzanne, you have a question?
Oh goodness. I don't think I've had the pleasure of flying with you, Glenn. I can see you doing that, however,
I
in an
do
attempt.
not mess around at the TSA. I did have a lovely talk with Wolfgang Puck once when we were both pulled aside for a second screening. However, you never joke with the TSA agents. Friendliness, eye contact, get on out of there. Sorry, Suzanne. Go on.
For sure. No, I know you've been really consumed, if you will, about making sure you had your documents and on time and doing what you needed to for your ID. I feel like I have to go double check mine, but when I moved down here to Florida, I feel like I went through this whole process and I have my star on my ID and I feel like I'm good, but I might need to go back and double check now.
Yeah.
So if you obtained your Real ID in Florida, then it is a Real ID. They are one of our Real ID only states.
Oh, see,
Oh,
I am on top of it.
There
all
you
right.
are.
So, all right. So every state is a little bit different, and I did this it's like 4 road trips ago, so that's like a month ago. So I hardly remember the process anymore, which is a good thing because that means it was so easy that I don't have to remember all of the details in there. But here in New York State, I believe we have multiple options that we can get. We can,
Yes.
and Real ID is one of them. So as part of that process, what I found for our Department of Motor Vehicles was that they had a website set up specifically to answer questions. And it was really cool, Simone, because it's like, are you interested in this? Yes. Then it took you to the next question. And then it specifically told me everything I needed and to check off the documents I had. And then it would say, good, you're approved. Not approved like you're approved to go in and get the approval, but I mean, you have the stuff for approval there. So Simona, I found that really, really helpful that my state was doing that. Obviously, I can't speak to the other 49 and territories out there. And yeah, I'm dropping it. I know 50 states here in the U.S. I just wanted to throw that out. So that was really interesting to me. Combined with our Department of Motor Vehicle now does all of appointments online, so you don't have to go and do that waiting in purgatory all morning long as you wait there. And it's like, oh, I'm only my number D23 is like only one number away, and then they go to like N64 and Q46, and you just sit there, and it really stresses you out. But boom, I got called up like that. I presented my passport, my birth certificate, a piece of mail that I had, and a bill. It had to be a bill that I needed, that they needed to verify that I'm actually at that particular address. So, Simone, the way I saw it is you want to make sure the person, number one, is legit and has been through some sort of processing, either at birth or through the passport. Plus, you need to verify where they live and who they say they are. Does that all make sense? Am I missing anything?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Correct. You have to prove your citizenship, 2 pieces of information to show your permanent residence where you
Mhm.
are at the present time. You have to be able to show your social security number and I think
Yeah.
that's it. Your name,
Yep.
date of birth. Yes. So there are specific documents that they will accept to
Mhm.
show those things. So and that will be listed on your state website, as you said. And a lot of states allow people to upload their documents digitally. So with that, you know you have everything correct before you
Right.
even go in. Now you still have to take the
Well,
documents in with you,
yeah,
but at
right.
least you know you haven't forgotten something when you get
That's
there.
really cool. And of course, my assumption, and not to say that little thing that comes after that, but that they need to prove everything in person
Yes,
to make sure, because we're in this world of technology where things can be fudged in an online kind of a form, right?
absolutely. Yes, that's why you still have to take the documents, even if you upload them digitally. But the digital piece at least lets you be sure that you have everything you need before
Yep.
you go in.
Yeah, that's cool. Suzanne?
Yeah, I think it speeds along the process.
Yes.
Honestly, I think in most of the way, I think COVID really advanced the opportunity for RMVs, DMVs, because making appointments, it becomes easier than sitting in that sense of purgatory, as kind of Glenn was talking about before, and knowing that you've got those right documents. Because sometimes there's that sense of angst, like, do I have everything? And it's not that you're not legit, it's that do I forgot something, now I have to start all over again and take that time. But for me, I found it to be a real simple process. But unlike Glenn, I didn't have a choice of
Right.
real ID or not. This is everything that was needed. And so that's why I was like, ooh, I better check. But thanks to Simone, I know now that I'm on top of it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I could understand why states like New York have that, because it could be complicated for certain people who don't feel that they're going to travel to get all those documents together. But I love what Florida is doing by just making it the way it is to take out that layer of complexity as well, so that when people go to the airport May 8th next year, they're not going to have any surprises like I'm sure a lot of New Yorkers are going to have. So, Simone, now that we kind of understand what we have to do in order to get it, what is this? What is it going to be like when you have real ID? What will change? What won't change in the future?
So, are you speaking at TSA or?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we could talk about what's going to change in my life. I feel more complete now, but I don't think that's why people are hearing it.
Right. Okay, so at our checkpoint, and a lot of people get this confused. So let me explain it. We
Mhm.
have a list of acceptable IDs that the TSA accepts at their checkpoint. Regardless of real ID, there is
Right.
a list. It has like passports on it, military ID, dependent cards, things of that nature. This list, it's fluid. Sometimes
Mhm.
things are taken off that list,
Mhm.
sometimes identifications are added. The difference on May 7th, 2025 is that the driver's license that is currently on that list will change to Real ID compliant driver's license. So, in order to come through the checkpoint, you will be required, if you use a driver's license, to
Mhm.
have a Real ID compliant card or another form of acceptable ID on the list. Those don't change. It's still your passport's still acceptable. Your military ID is still acceptable. It's just if you use a driver's license, it must be Real ID compliant. So, and we have prepared our checkpoint for the possibility of individuals who will not have it so that we can
Oh,
still
come on. I can't
continue.
imagine that Americans are going to be unprepared for
Ah,
after a
yeah. We are
1981 thing.
hoping. We're
Yeah.
taking a lot of precautions ahead of time. If you'll notice now, if you go through our checkpoints, they're handing out
Yep.
slips to say, please get compliant with Real ID.
Well,
And they
Simone,
get
I
QR
didn't
codes
notice
with a
that
lot of
because I am compliant
there
already,
you are. That
but
is so great.
I have been informed about that. And the really cool thing is it's a little piece of paper. It's got a QR code on it. So you can just show your phone on there and do it right away while it's fresh of mind. And hey, you're either waiting online to get into the Sky Lounge or sit and waiting to board anyway. You might as well start investigating that, right, Simone?
That's correct. That's correct. And all the information is there, takes
Mhm.
you to not only our acceptable forms list, but also to where you can click on your state and find out what's required to get a real ID in your state.
That's pretty cool. Suzanne?
So I just recently traveled, and I had met a couple that had not traveled in upwards of 10 years. And so for those people who have been leading a relatively sheltered life, especially down here in Florida, Orlando is such a busy airport. How will the TSA checkpoints then handle those individuals who may not have the proper ID and may not have their passport? What do they do? How do they still make it happen to get onto their flight?
So first, let me say that we are preparing an advertising campaign right now
Yep.
that will go out nationwide, and hopefully, it will hit those individuals through
Yep.
TV, radio, media, and
Right.
things of this that aren't connected, if you will, to the travel industry
Right.
and tied in. So we're hoping at least they'll begin to see this. But with that, we do have a plan at our checkpoint to be able to deal with individuals who may not have their real ID at that time,
Mhm.
because we're doing an informative approach so that we're also informing
Yep.
people as we enforce. And so, but we will inform them that they need to get it, or next time they need to come prepared with another acceptable form of ID. And
And
there will be a
point
time when
at some
people
point
will be turned away
yeah.
from the checkpoint if they
Right.
don't have an acceptable
Well,
form of
well,
ID.
Simone, you can't stay in the state of limbo at some point. Like, I
Exactly.
get it. It's May, people aren't ready, but come like September, I mean, like, then it's going to be on them. I'm curious as to how the airlines are going to be partnering with you to help this happen. I certainly get plenty of notifications from my airline of choice about certain things, and it feels like this is an easy thing for them to be able to push out as your ticket is May 8th, 2025. Remember to have your real ID or some other form of approval. Will that be happening perhaps?
Yes, they are actually partnering with us
Awesome.
right now. They put it in their reservations, of course, and
Mhm.
I think most of you see that. But it's also at the point of check-in. So when you check in online, it'll pop up again and say,
Yes.
"Hey, need to be real ID ready." And the purpose of that, and we're so glad they're partnering with us with that, is we're hoping to keep people away from coming into the airport without their real ID, so that they will prepare. You check in a day before and it pops up, you're like, "Oh, well, let me grab my passport, right?
Yep.
Or let me grab something else because I don't have my real ID." So we're hoping that that will be a trigger for individuals to prepare to come to the airport.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? Right? It is guaranteed in life that there will people that will show up without it, but it sounds to me like you're really doing a great plan here to kind of mitigate what those first few months are going to be like and keep the confusion down to a bare a minimum. Suzanne, how are you feeling about this?
Well, I'm feeling that there's definitely a great campaign. I would say the next level of concern is those who are maybe more frequent travelers, and maybe haven't gotten pre-check or clear, and you still go through the standard TSA line. What is the plan or mitigation tactics to help ease the burden of the line, because it takes time to communicate this message to everyone? What does that strategy look like?
Well, again, we're going to hand out the sheets, which we are doing right now. And all the information is on that sheet that we
Mhm.
hand out. And so to minimize the point of the ticket document checker having to conversate with each
Yeah,
passenger,
that
we're really just, yeah, having them say, please check the QR code, because literally that little tiny sheet is full
yep.
of information. So we're hoping that the individuals, will just keep going and then check the QR codes. But as far as people who don't have a real ID, yeah, their process, if after enforcement, those processes could be a bit longer, and they would have to step out the line and things of that nature. But at that point, that's why we're hoping that the message will get out. Individuals will be prepared, even if they don't have a real ID, to bring another acceptable form. But we want to make sure that the message gets out far and wide, and we are doing everything in our power to do that. We're asking you all to do that, and your customers and clients to do that, and so we can reach everyone that needs to have this message.
Excellent. And I'd also like to throw out the message: don't be lulled into a false sense of security by not having that ID, because even though a lot of the airlines and the TSA are doing great jobs with facial recognition to move lines quicker, there will still be a point where they're going to be like, love your photo, got to check your ID anyway, and you don't want to have a problem. So don't assume that you're going to be able to go just walking right in because of these new technologies that are coming around. I think for the rest of my lifetime, we're probably still going to need to have that backup ID. Would you agree with that assessment, Simone?
I do agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. All right, cool. Plenty enough to say. All right, before we wrap up, I think we've got all the talking points we need to how again can we make sure that we have the right ID? What should we do if we look at our license and not realize if we have real ID? And then how can we go to our state to get the real ID?
So, if you do not have a real ID compliant driver's license right now, what you do want to take the steps to consider doing that as soon as possible. And I say that because once people realize that TSA is serious and we're really enforcing, the DMVs may possibly back up. And
Yep.
so if you have a flight in June and your
Mhm.
appointment at the DMV is in July, then you're going
Mm.
to have an issue. So I say, please go take care of it as soon as you can. But go to the TSA website. And once you get in there in the identifications area, you can click on the real ID and it will bring you to a point where you can click on your state and find out exactly what you need to do to get your real ID.
Awesome. And I would also like to tell people out there, when you look at your real ID, it's probably going to have one of those little logos. Suzanne, could you remove the names real quick for a second? Because she's got the little, there we go,
Yes.
stars and that bear and all of that. So you got to be looking for one of those. If you're not sure if you have it or not, you don't have one of those, and you don't have one, and it's time to get real and get your ID over there. Make sure you check with your state DMV, all of that, and TSA.gov. Is that correct, Simone?
That is correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Hey, thank you. And hey, listen, Suzanne, on the 13th, yesterday, 2.71 million people went through TSA checkpoints. That's up like 140,000 from the year before on the same day. So we're setting record numbers now of people out there. And the last thing you want to do is be at the back of that line and get to the front of that line and realize you made a terrible mistake.
And I think honestly, right, with as Simone said, with the DMVs, RMVs, whatever you call them in your area, their appointments now, you can't just walk in and just say, all right, I'm going to show up and
That's
look
right.
to get this solved for today. So you really need to be on top of what your schedule is so that you're not running an impact, because it might take you a month or two or more to get an appointment. So you've got to be adaptable, flexible, and bring your patients.
You never know. I lucked out. I got my appointment the next day at a time convenient for me, but that was lucky. Don't wait. Don't wait. All right. Well, if you want to keep getting great information, follow us. You know where to follow us. NoVacancyNews.com. Brand new website. If I do say myself, it looks really good. Probably mostly because I had to pay for it, but I think it looks good. YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. Check us out. And remember, thanks for being here. You've got one life, so blaze on and
follow your passion.
see you later.